Hello and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. Apologies for a short delay there. We were just having a little bit of a technical issue there. I hope I sound okay. I've had to go to my AirPods rather than my microphone because none of them are working today, which is lovely. But anyway, we have so much great news that I don't think that's really going to matter. Bring my usual team in for this week. First, Graham McDonald. How are you, Graham?
Good morning. I'm very, very good. Thank you, Richard. Nice, wet and miserable morning here in West Auckland.
Excellent. You'll be pleased to know I've started a diet. I'm a weekend, so I'm following in your tracks. Going to sort that stuff out.
We should have on the show online, well, it's a good idea or not, but a weight challenge, or at least a weight reduction challenge, shall we say. You and I should take the show challenge, put ourselves out there.
Well, I'm happy to throw some numbers out there if you are.
Yeah, challenge on, bets on, buddy, bets on.
Okay.
Actually, for the motor industry in general, what we should be doing is putting this as a bit of a wider challenge amongst our viewers, and see if anybody else wants to follow along the journey as well. Because let's face it, I've had a pretty good excuse as to why you should be watching what you put into this bit here, and maybe there's some others in 2024 would like to come along the journey and actually see what we can try and achieve collectively as blokes and blokettes too.
Well, look. There's always the thing, you always say I'm going to start it tomorrow. I don't think we should start this tomorrow. Throw it out there. What was on the scale the last time you stepped on one?
This morning, 97.7.
Okay, so that's your starting point. Now, my starting point is incredibly embarrassing because I got to being the heaviest I've ever been, and people who've known me in the industry for years know my weight's gone up and down and all over the place. My scales at home run to 150 kilos. I had to step, because this is how serious we were doing this, I had to step on the scales at my local vets at 156 kilograms. So my first target is getting back on my home scales. So I'm being fairly aggressive, but smart with it all. So we'll see how long that takes. Got a long way to go. You got a target, Graham, or?
I do. So initially it's to get 95. And then ultimately, I'd like to be somewhere around the 92 mark, which I think is realistic for someone of my height and age. 92 is the goal, but I think that's probably a midway through next year. And dare I say, well post-America goal, because I'm heading back to the States midway through next year. And Lord only knows there is no such thing as weight loss when you're traveling in America. It is not going to happen.
I want to get to 100. So you've got what? You've got about 10 kilos to go. I've got about 55 kilos to go.
There you go then, right? So marker point for the show. Let's review things as we go into the start of December, which is another 4 weeks away, and just see if there's any sort of marginal difference at that point in time. And for those of you out there in the automotive or other world, I do encourage you to take along a bit of a challenge to yourself into 2024 as well, because it just makes such a huge difference to your long-term health, as I have found out the hard way this year.
Do we report weekly or fortnightly?
I would say, actually, I even say monthly, but certainly no less, or no, certainly no smaller interval than fortnightly.
Let's start fortnightly and see how we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, adding into the group, David, did you want to throw your numbers into the pile, or are you?
I'm in the middle. Yeah, no, I'm in the middle. I'm not the heaviest that I've been, but I'm heavier than I'd like to be. So I'm 127 as of this morning, actually, which is about 3 kgs down on where I was about 3 weeks ago.
Well done.
So my target is 95. And I haven't been below 110 kgs for 30 years, so that's a huge challenge. So my first target's 115. Then I have another target to get below 110, and if I can get below 110, then 95 is achievable. Graham, like you, for my age and height, 95 is probably at the upper end of where I should be, but it's where I'd be very happy to be. And I need to lose them before I go to the US, because I'm going to be there for 11 weeks.
I can promise you, David, you'll 5 kilos just like that will go woof. 5 kilos America.
Yeah, although the way I deal with it is I just eat less. And I just, when I'm touring on my motorbike, I tend to just have 2 meals a day.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the lightest I've been was about 111 kilos. About the time I proposed to my wife, I'd already gotten down really low, down to about 114, and then went to Thailand and got a tummy bug. And it had this beautiful suit made for me in Thailand, and by the time I made it back to Japan, it didn't fit anymore. But anyway, of course, the other big news is I don't really have a beard anymore. Hilarious story behind this. I went to my barber. He looked really tired. They've got a newborn baby at home. And I said, just the usual, reasonably short on the sides, trim on the top, and just a trim on the beard. And he was started going, and he was doing around the sides. And he started going down there, and by the time he'd run through there, I was like, "You just cut off my beard." The man was
But
very apologetic. We've all
it
had
is
kids. We all
November.
know how it can be.
It's November.
Yeah, yeah. It's so
It
apparently,
grows back.
yeah. My wife says so. My wife's never really seen me within it the short, and she says apparently I look grumpy without the beard on. So yeah, I'm willing it to grow back very quickly. Interestingly, he charged me for the haircut. He didn't charge me for the beard. He still charged me for the haircut, despite having shaved off a beard. So
And on
yes.
the grumpy scale, Richard, I'd like to buy a T-shirt that says, "I'm not always grumpy. I sometimes ride my motorbike."
Oh,
You just haven't spent a lot of time in the car industry, David, clearly.
Right. Well, there is a epic amount of news due out there today. It's been a really big week after nothing for a couple of weeks. Not really big. There's just a few key stories. I'm actually going to start off, even though this is, I guess, stats week. We're going to start off with a non-stat story because it's developing and it's at this stage exclusive to AutoTalk. So let's pull it up on the screen. And that is that. Sorry, that's a bit on offline there. Rumors of clean car discount closure appear false. Now, this one started snowballing yesterday when we had some people in the trade tell us that they were hearing lots of rumors, particularly from the fleet and rental spaces, that the clean car discount fund was insolvent and was going to close within 2 weeks, which to anyone who actually knows doesn't really add up. So we jumped into gear and spoke to a lot of people on this one, and it is definitely appears that it's false. Rumours circulating that clean car discount will end early due to the fund it draws from being empty appear to have no grounding. AutoTalk began hearing the rumour. The fund was insolvent. We closed within 2 weeks on Thursday. With those we spoke to hearing it, particularly from fleet and rental customers. And literally, these were people calling their distributors, panicking, wanting to get their cars that weren't being delivered for some time registered and rebates underway. To claim them still. So some big moves yesterday, and I wonder if some business has actually done off the base of this rumour. Our investigations indicate there is no truth to the rumours, with Waikatahi, who administers the program, certain that the fund is in good standing. And I can add to that now, I've just sent a text message from someone saying that now ministry officials have confirmed that this is not the case, and they are going to issue a written kind of response to this, that this is absolutely incorrect.
Yeah, I agree, Richard. From my understanding of the government arrangements around the rebate and the fees, is that the government has underwritten the fund. There is a budget allocation, but that's an allocation and it's a budget. But there is a government guarantee. And that was one of the things that Treasury really worried about when the scheme was set up, was what's the risk that this exercise would pose to the Crown. So I'd be surprised if it would close early because of the way in which they...
My understanding, and I got this from insiders, it's tied to the SURF fund, the Climate Emergency Response Fund. And should it go over, it would actually draw from that technically. But that may not necessarily be correct. Spokesperson for Wakatahi, Andy Nexted, says he can confirm there is money in the fund and it is not insolvent, though he won't release how much is in the pot until a scheduled data release next week. We can categorically say the fund is not insolvent. We'll be publishing that updated data for October next week. Another source within the government we spoke to says yearly closure would be highly unlikely, and technically the government can't run out of money, particularly in this case where the funds are attached to the much larger Climate Emergency Response Fund. The report to the end of September showed 115.7 million in the fund. In the September period, 57.2 million had been paid out against 52.6 million collected, meaning the fund only dropped 4.6 million for that month. While the gap in expenditure is likely to widen with ute sales slowing in part due to National's commitment to kill the scheme on 31 December, thousands of fee-paying cars were still sold in October. The MIA says their modelling shows there should be plenty of money still there. Unless demand spikes to unprecedented levels. There's no way that demand could spike to unprecedented levels, but there's no way those cars would actually end up on the ground. While there is a bit of electric stock there, there's still not a lot in the scheme of things. And I mean, to the point where some of these companies are containering in cars into China because they would like some more. So I'm not sure how that could ever happen. Simeon Brown says he's not aware of anything happening and doesn't actually have any control yet. And Greg Epps from VIA says, well, he's heard that some thought's been given to how they are going to wind up if National goes through with their plans. He questions how it can be insolvent. So, yes, you can stop panicking, people. It's not, as far as we know, not going to happen.
Yeah, a good rumor though, isn't it? It's these things always start somewhere. That the Machiavellian part of me wonders if, because it's been a pretty slow sales month. October wasn't a great month for the industry, I think. Certainly from the used perspective anyway, it was a bit sluggish. You'd argue whether there's been some, should we say, artificial stimulus from dealers saying, well, you get your sales in now, folks. Buy your car now because the Clean Car Fund could end tomorrow. We've heard it could end tomorrow. Buy now, because everyone knows you like to get your sales in at the end of the month. Maybe that's just another tool in the box to say, buy your car this month, not next month. I've heard, and this is part of the problem, I think, around the Clean Car program, is since the beginning of the scheme, I don't think it's been as well understood by many people as it should have been, and even within the trade. And even as of yesterday, still getting some confusion from dealers that we talked to about how the scheme works, how it's paid in, and this goes for the Clean Car Standard as well. It's not really well understood, and certainly not understood by the public. So it doesn't take much when it comes to a slight, so we say, a slip of the tongue in how you are talking about the scheme for that to be taken out of context. And before you know it, since everyone's on edge right now, let's face it, journalists right now are they're selling yacht fuel as fast as they can because there's no other news until we have those numbers in later on today about how it's going to look.
Yes.
Speak it harder.
Yeah, look, talking of numbers, Graham, just looking at the new vehicle sales, Amy released the stats for October this morning. I went through the 1975 data table that she sends out, and just looking at the monthly totals for the new vehicle sector for July, August, September, and October, and they are all running at 2014, 2015 levels. So the numbers are down, and with the numbers down, I can't see how that fund is running out or going insolvent, knowing where the balance was last time they made a public statement. Yeah. So I'm with you, Richard. This is sort of a hair loose in a paddock, and Graham, you're probably right. People are probably trying to, sales are really desperate at the moment, and I think they're trying every trick up their sleeve to worry customers into buying.
Yeah, I see it potentially a different way. There's an industry association tied to the rental fleet industry where someone was mentioning that the association there can be a little bit guilty at times of putting one-on-one together and coming up with 17. And maybe there's been some discussion around one of the industry associations on that side. We still haven't established that. It certainly just seems to be a lot of the rumours are coming from the customer side. Who knows? Maybe it's some competitive messing around in the rental side that's triggering it. Maybe one of these fleet companies is trying to move some stuff forward. Who knows? Yeah, don't panic. I suspect that a lot of money probably transacted yesterday. A lot of deals were signed based off that rumor floating around, which is interesting. And considering someone's responsible for, what is just incorrect. Anyway, let's move on to some numbers, and we've kind of touched on this. Sales down as buyers await Clean Car end. MG hits the top 4. Now, this is the provisional figures that come out on the 1st of the month from Wakotahi, as opposed to the more measured and tweaked figures that we get coming out a few days after, and including in the MIA release. So they're close enough, and I think generally the trends are close enough to show. Registrations for both new and passenger commercial vehicles were down, though perhaps by not as much as expected by some, as the chance of clean car discount ending in a matter of weeks rises to near certainty. We say a matter of weeks, it's 8 weeks. 8 weeks of the clean car thing.
Be minimum 8 weeks.
That's why I felt it would say it's a matter of weeks, as opposed to lots of months. In passenger cars, EVs and hybrid models did very well on the ute. Market activity was dampened as people realised a short wait can save thousands. 8 of the top 10 models are either electric or have hybrid or plug-in hybrid options. Passenger vehicle registrations were down 6.3% to 10,055 units, while commercial fell 26.7% to 2,890. That is pretty darn low on those utes. Interestingly, on those passenger cars, we've since found out it was a really big month for rentals. The majority, Toyota RAV4 led the market, and the majority of them were rentals, is what we're seeing. Leading the passenger market, Toyota recorded 2,683 units, up 28.8%. Kia was next, and then Mitsubishi. But interestingly, in fourth place, and making its entrance into the top 5, MG recorded 594 units, the majority electric. That's come off the back of the launch of the MG4, with Ford in 5th place, which I think is also interesting because Ford is generally not a passenger car brand these days. So I'd say that's a lot of it off the back of rentals, potentially some of their plug-in hybrid and electric options really moving in there. So that's that.
Yeah, Amy has sent out the corrected figures this morning, and they're not very different, as you might expect. But yes, I mean, just looking at the high level, 8.8% down on last year for overall. It's interesting, but yeah, the figures for the last 4 months have been are running at where we were at 2014, 2015 at a higher level. So, the market October is traditionally a really big month. It is a month that rentals are normally purchased, and apart from 2020, October's usually been 13 to 14, and sometimes 15, 16,000 units. So it's a reflection that it's still very tough. I think besides the election results, it's also just reflecting that the general economy is quite tough. And we've seen some huge discounts on EVs. I mean, that's the other story this last month. For new vehicles, the rampant discounting at levels I just would never have thought.
So I don't necessarily think those discounts are entirely down to the end of the clean car standard as such. Well, they are down to that, but necessarily not down to a lack of demand. I think if you look where those discounts are, they are in models where there's other reasons than just the end of the clean car discount for them to be discounted. If we look at the Peugeot and Opel stuff, they're getting to be older models. There's a bigger battery overseas, and those brands haven't necessarily hit the market with it in quite the way I suspect they hoped. If we look at the LDV Ute, that again, it's an outgoing model. It's poorly spec'd for the market, I think, and they're trying to get rid of them. We haven't seen the likes of BYD or Tesla or anything do anything dramatic to move stock. MG the same. They're kind of doing their usual thing.
That was my point. Is there are other things happening in the market other than the clean car discount?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think some of the timing and some of the stuff around that has probably given a negative reflection on what's going on in the EV market. I also think what we're seeing now is the exposure of some of the decisions that were made to meet that $80,000 limit for the clean car discount. I think that's really showing how poorly thought out that was, I think. We're seeing a lot of promotion around Volkswagen trying to move the ID4s. That's a really great vehicle, but because of the clean car discount, it was, to my mind, incorrectly spec'd for New Zealand, and that's one of the reasons why I think they're trying to clear those out now. I'm almost looking forward to the market getting back to a natural state next year, where cars can be spec'd how they should be for the market and can be sold how they should be for the market, rather than having to fit within this box that just was there because people don't want rich people to buy a Tesla.
Well, it's the whole market. Go on, David.
So I was just going to say, the last 2 years have been really indicative of how government regulation can screw with the market.
Yeah.
But
I've
apparently
actually
that's a good
discussed this.
thing, right?
Yeah, discussed this a couple of times lately with some people saying, "Oh, like the market preview is going to die next year." Blah blah blah. I don't. I think it's actually going to go uphill. So we won't actually see so much of this discounted stuff going, but the likes of Audi and some of the, and we've reported before Cadillac coming in, and that might still be coming in, and some of the higher spec stuff. I think it'll actually sell probably maybe slightly better because you've got a lot of people who traditionally would have bought a $150,000 car that have been buying a $75,000 Tesla because they're savvy, and why wouldn't they take $7,000 of free money? So I think we'll actually see the market kind of return a little bit to its norm. I don't actually think it's the death of EV sales. Now, on to the used car market. Imports actually, compared to last year, I know it's not necessarily the best measure, had a reasonable month. Relatively, used term relative, relatively busy in October with buyers flocking in particular smaller hybrid models. Overall passenger registrations were up 33.5% to 9,657 units from 7,232 a year ago. The segment is down 4% year to date. Twitter top passenger registrations for the brand up 77.1%. They've got 49.7% of the used market now. Nissan in second, 67.7%, and Mazda in third. And if we look at the model charts, it was the Aqua, followed by the Prius, the Corolla. It was a very big month for cars. Hybrid. Yep. Nissan Note, that would be hybrid too.
Most
Graham,
of them are hybrids. Yeah. So out of those models, the Aqua you can still claim a clean car rebate on. The Prius liftback, this is the 30 series stuff. That's the most predominant model in the market, or still is anyway. So you can claim a rebate on the sedans, but you can't claim a rebate on the Alpha wagon that they fall just outside. The 50 series you can. The Corolla Fielder hybrids still qualify for a rebate, and again, most of the Corollas coming into the hybrid wagons. We don't see a lot of the Urus hybrids by numbers. They don't yet figure predominantly in the statistics. We still tend to do the petrol versions. And the Note, and this is a Note, obviously the E-Note is the predominant Model E2. So it's no surprise because once again, the used industry, as it should be, is busily promoting to its market base out there that now is the time to buy a hybrid-based vehicle to get your rebate. And $1,000 is $1,000 is $1,000.
Yeah, free money.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think there's as much consciousness in the marketplace now from people that the scheme is going to end. It's just a question of when. And one of the most often asked questions now is, if I buy a vehicle on, say, the 27th of December, and I put in for my rebate, will I still get my rebate if the scheme is cancelled on the 1st of January? And so I think there's still a lot of uncertainty from people about what that's going to mean coming up towards the end, whether it'll finish early, whether they've got to get their rebate application in, or whether it's got to be paid out by then. And to be fair, there's not been a lot of answers to that yet because we don't yet have the government in place, installed, if you like, to give the exact answers that is needed. So it's hybrids all the way in the used market right now, baby. And on the other side to it, the bigger stuff that is classified as requiring a fee.
Sitting at the back of the yard until January.
It's sitting in until January now.
Have you started ordering Subaru Legacy H6s again from Japan, Graham?
Oh God, we didn't deal in those for the longest time anyway. But funny enough, I've got a Mazda Miata, an X5 sitting on the hill that I actually drove yesterday, just happily waiting for its time in the sunshine. And that, funny enough, won't be till the 1st of January. So
interestingly,
like
496 used Nissan Leafs, and quite a few new ones as well this month. It did okay. But here's a question, David, you might have some thoughts on this from your new car side experience. What use would Nissan New Zealand have for 116 head office registered demonstrated Nissan Leafs?
That's
the response, isn't it?
And look, sadly, they're not the only guilty party. Over the years, we've seen this from time to time. Yeah.
Well, you can't say it. I can say it. I can say what you two can't. Carbon harvesting, anyone?
The weird
I can
thing
hear
is,
a
though,
harvest in the background.
but they have one of the lowest CO2 producing utes. So it's not like they've got a huge amount to balance off. I mean, sure, the X Trail's not exactly the cleanest thing either, but yeah.
It's just one way of staggering them into the market. The interesting thing is, as the clean car discount disappears, there's another regulatory tool that won't disappear, being the clean car standard, and the CO2 and carbon credit scheme, has some new numbers for 2024, which are a bit tougher than 2023. So there are other things that might put brakes on high emitting vehicles. But it'll be interesting to see, assuming Simeon gets to be the Minister of Transport, what target adjustments he makes and when he makes those. I think from an industry perspective, 2024 it starts to hurt, but is doable. So he's got the 2024 year, in my view, to get it right. But from 2025 onwards, with the new and used vehicle sectors, it gets into real painful territory.
There was actually our next story off the rank, just via reminding their dealers, their traders and importers that there are new figures on the way. The new car guys, I suspect, are well on top of it. Actually, I think some of the new car brands now have basically clean car managers within the company just keeping track and accounting for all these things. But I think it's a little bit maybe more difficult for some of the news corporations to keep an eye on. It is very complex and does change a lot. It seems.
The new vehicle sector, Richard, set up those positions last year. They certainly, as the industry was going through the discussions and dialogue, I began to see a whole new range of people coming to some of the meetings and talking it through. And since then, they hold some real key responsibilities. As you would expect for distributors, there's a lot on the line for them. In the used vehicle sector, Graham, it's so different. I guess the base is so different. There's a lot more people at play. It's much harder, and I think that's where the confusion arises. Is you've got a lot of people in there who, at the end of the delivery line, who don't quite understand the niceties of how all of this works.
Oh no, and I had an example just yesterday, David, with a dealer that I was transacting with, and I think we were coming at it from polar opposites about how the clean car scheme standard, how it actually works, and what dealer responsibilities are, and what those credits mean, how they're paid for, how they sit in the system. And it occurred to me that we're into this a year in now, a year and a bit in, or two, and it's still not necessarily well understood by a lot of people. And then again, that gets the same old point. And I think our departed from the industry colleague David Vinson was fond of saying, if legislation is badly understood by the people it's intended to help, and it's badly understood by those that are implementing it, it's badly understood by the people that are recipients, it's just bad legislation. And I think that in some ways the clean car standard and the clean car discount scheme has been a bit of a victim of its complexities. And I know it's been set up to be a simple scheme, and I understand, and you'd argue whether it's been good, bad, or indifferent. Forget about that for a second. At an implementation point, it's always been a little bit difficult to work its way through from the management perspective.
Yeah, and the complexity in the standard is that it's a weighted sales weighted average. And so you've got these different weight bands, and you have to have good information tracking systems in place to be able to calculate your credits versus your penalties.
I mean, a lot of dealers woke up and saw that headline yesterday from VIA about the changing brackets and thought, what? It's first I've heard of this. I'll bet it's going to... Well, no, seriously. I mean, how much news has there been about this up to now? This is the first we've heard of this for a very long time. It's been parked away in the background. So it'll catch a lot of people on the hop.
And they're buying now. They're buying for January now.
That's absolutely. Yep.
Now, away from statistics and clean car stuff, let's talk about the newly dubbed somehow cheap car segment. NZ Cheap Cars reports strong profits. And I had a bit of a fun with this story because we could have just run this straight as a news one, but I kind of saw through it. NZ Cheap Cars, the used car upstart strongly linked to X2 Cheap Cars founder Eugene Williams, but on paper not. But anyway, everyone knows, has reported strong profits for the first half of the 2024 financial year. the weird part, it is under no obligation to do so. This is a company that doesn't have to tell people how much money it makes. And they put out a press release telling people how much money they make. It is not listed. The company has no legal reason to release the figures. But perhaps with their result for the 6 months being similar to last year's Too Cheap Cars annual result, they found more reason to celebrate. So I would say that's why. The company has not shied away from antagonizing their distant cousin with the distant cousin or brother from another mother, I don't know. Brother from the same father, whatever. The distant cousin with a similar name and branding, and on the North Stroke mega site sharing the same driveway. In the 6 months at the end of September, the company claims to have sold 1,100 cars, generating a net profit of $1.57 million. It says the new North Shore branch has been trading well. But didn't you say that didn't you suggest, Graham, previously there just weren't that many cars out there anyway?
I was going to say, first of all, it's just like a pissing contest between two brothers that had the unfortunate circumstance of being born from the same parent who they don't talk to anymore. Yeah, I did observe, and I observed yesterday as well, that for a really active, busy business, there's not a whole lot of cars parked. In fact, the North Shore branch, the two competing organisations are literally side by side. I mean, literally, they share the same fence and the same driveway entrance. And one was full of cars, and the other had 20 cars, I think I counted. I'm thinking, well, either these things are coming into the dealership so fast that they're literally disappearing out the door at the same time as they're coming in. I don't know. We're going to just keep talking about this. It's just another chapter in a book that I, frankly, other people got a bit tired of. Or is it just because we like a bit of news like this every now and then? But you're right.
So a bit more fun towards the end. So the managing director, Michael Yang, ex-Too Cheap Cars, of course. We are thrilled to report such impressive results for the first half of financial year 24, selling 1,100 cars and achieving a net profit of X is a testament to our team's dedication and our commitment to providing affordable and reliable transportation solutions. We believe our business model has firmly established us as the leading player in the cheap imported vehicle segment. So there's now a cheap imported vehicle segment. Another dig at Too Cheap there? Likely. So, that's...
It's just like a messy divorce, isn't it? They keep sniping at each other for years afterwards. And, we can just sit on the sidelines with a cup of coffee or a whiskey and chuckle.
Who gets the tractor in the sand pit this week, boys?
I think I need to do a story on this cheap car segment because there's a third dealership. I think there might actually be four now, but there's definitely a third dealership with the cheap cars name. Graham, you're definitely aware of them.
Mm-hmm.
That company, and I won't name it now, we'll do something separate on it later. That company up to the end of September has had 8 appearances in the tribunal this year. More than Too Cheap Cars and NZ Cheap Cars combined. So there's a third one out there, and we'll definitely look at them in the near future because, maybe for not so good reasons, I guess. Anyway, let's move on to some more positive stuff. A couple of Giltrap stories. Giltrap Group opens its brand new Christchurch dealership. The Giltrap Group has opened an all-new facility located in Islington, Christchurch. It houses a certified Bentley service centre, Polestar Christchurch, and a selection of pre-owned luxury vehicles and supercars. The company says the goal was to give Giltrap Christchurch the same character as the 119 GNR building in Auckland's Grey Lynn, where Bentley, Aston Martin and Lamborghini have their New Zealand headquarters. Our passionate customer base in Canterbury and access and across the South Island made this facility a must-have for Giltrap Group, says Giltrap Christchurch General Manager Jared Clark. There is no question the South Island boasts the world's best driving roads, so it's fantastic to be able to offer the highest possible level of service and support for our customers in Christchurch. They've been hosting a growing number of drive events in the South Island, and having Polestar down there is also a good move too. That's a big expansion. I think it's a really smart move. There are a lot of very substantial estates within Christchurch and out into the broader South Island countryside with some very tasty cars tucked away in them. It's a bit notorious for it. And also, of course, further down, having access to those brands further down into the Queenstown market too. This just makes a heck of a lot of sense. There's old money down there.
Mm-hmm.
And nice roads.
Very nice roads, very nice roads.
Yeah.
You probably have more fun with something down there than you could up here. Now let's move on to the next one. Guild Trip Group hosts the second Women in Automotive event. More than 80 people attended a Women in Automotive New Zealand event at Guild Trip Group's Auckland showrooms to hear from experts about furthering careers in the automotive industry. Women in Automotive NZ was officially launched in May this year as a collective of 6 partners. Maito, MIA, MTA, the Collision Repair Association, NZME, and then Natasha Callister, the chair, is also from MTF Finance. Lots of acronyms there. The strong turnout at Women in Automotive second event shows how important it is to provide support, practical advice, and networking opportunities for women in our industry. We've been overwhelmed by the positive support we have received from the industry. Another great story from that. That's a great project. Again, we've discussed it before, and love to see more of it. We need more talent in the industry than potentially what we've got at the moment. Now, if you do want to do some carbon harvesting and you want to learn how, we ran a webinar earlier this week with the Carbon Trading Company, an outfit based out of Christchurch. They have a website and platform for trading clean car standard credits. Quite a cool little system. They have started to see some people trading stuff for the sake of trading stuff rather than just actually moving stuff to specifically buy vehicles. Worth a look. Jump onto our website or our YouTube channel or our LinkedIn or our Facebook. It's on all our platforms, and you can sit there for about half an hour and learn how to trade a few carbon credits. Was trading them ever kind of part of the discussion when this was being put together, David?
There were, at least at my time at the MIA, there were some questions as to whether the association should get into it. I wasn't keen. I haven't actually spoken to Amy as to whether they might be keen now, but it's generally something that they've left the distributors to sort out among themselves, and there's different arrangements. And so, it requires a high degree of skill and tracking, and the software that you would put together to be able to do it has to link in and meet all sorts of legislative requirements. It requires a dedicated team to sort of manage it properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to go through AML both for your account, and then you have to go through AML again to actually be able to trade them through the platforms. But certainly easier than doing it all. As we've seen people trading them on Facebook chat rooms and all sorts of stuff like that. I think this is, it's good to see that at least someone, I think there might be some company coming along as well that are actually putting some structure in place to do this stuff. Because there are opportunities. There's credits trading hands for as low as $6, which means there's potentially some value there in the gap between what is it you can actually buy some of them for at the moment. There's used car credits. New car credits obviously slightly different. What the cost actually is to buy them direct from Wakatahi or what they might be worth in the long run. Certainly into next year. They don't expire. So these things, as we go on, are probably only going to be in higher demand, and prices could rise. So, put some real thought into what you do with your credits.
I've got a rhetorical question. I've got 2 rhetorical questions for the pair of you, and the questions you have to ask today and today only. We're on the cusp of knowing what the final numbers from the election are any hour now. I'm not quite sure when they're released. So we'll know what the makeup of the government, 2 o'clock. Okay, we'll know what the makeup of the government's going to be. I would say over the weekend we'll have a pretty good idea how it's going to look. Let's just say the numbers don't fall in National's favour to the extent where they not only need ACT and New Zealand First, they really need New Zealand First. And as part of that coalition agreement, ACT and New Zealand First stand to one side and they say, no more clean car standard, we're not in government. Because they've talked about that. New Zealand First position, I'm not so sure, since they're making the manifesto up, I think, right up to election day. But ACT are pretty clear about it. Let's just say that the election result, first of all, do you think that this is a possibility? And I'm sure that it's not, but as a possibility, as a coalition, do not pass go point, they say not only no standard, discount scheme, but no standard either. And then, now that poses a series of really interesting questions that I was thinking about it yesterday. What if the clean car scheme was unravelled? Does that mean that the value of your credits you currently have sitting in your accounts, assuming that they are credits that you maintain with NZTO with CleanCar. Are they now actually worth their face value at cash up if the scheme is wound up?
I can't imagine the government would be allowed to close it and just completely remove the value of anything that's out there. Certainly, as they've collected the money on stuff that's been yeah.
I would be very.
David, any thoughts?
Yeah, I had a number of discussions with Simeon right up until just about a month or so before I retired, and he was adamant the clean car standard would remain, but with modified targets. So the very first question I have is, if it remains and they modify the targets, that does change the value of the credits, etc. It would diminish the number of credits that are made because the targets will be slightly easier, certainly diminish the penalties. I don't think, I mean, the only thing that I think is certain is that the clean car discount will go, because the 2 out of 3 protagonists don't like it. And I think Winston Peters and New Zealand First were opposed to it, opposed to the detail of how it worked when they were in coalition in the 2017-20 government.
I believe as far as New Zealand First went on policy as such around it, was they just said no more clean ute tax. That's what they said. I don't think they ever went into any detail past no more ute tax. Ute tax bad. That was about as far as they developed it.
Yeah.
So I'd be extremely surprised if both went, because I think National understand that to go to a low emissions economy is something you don't want to rush into, which the current standard is forcing us to rush into. But it is something that you want to engineer over time, and it requires a market won't necessarily do it on its own in a structured way. So if the government wants to have a structured process to try and engineer a low emissions economy over time, then it needs to set a few sticks in the ground to beat those that don't want to play the game around the head with. I'd be very surprised, Graham, if the standard went. And I personally think it would be a retrograde step. It absolutely must be modified, but I don't think it should be taken out altogether.
Right, on to the next one. Familiar face joins UDC as dealer general manager. Andrew Brock has rejoined UDC Finance after 13 years, taking on the role of dealer general manager. He takes over from Lawrence Prophet, who took over the reins as UDC Chief Operating Officer earlier in the year. Brock has an impressive resume in the New Zealand finance industry. I hope you guys can hear me because the rain outside is torrential. Prof has an impressive resume in the New Zealand finance industry and comes full circle to rejoin UDC Finance, where he started his journey back in 1994. He spent 16 years at ANZ and UDC. UDC was, of course, owned by ANZ back then. He's held several roles in the company, including from both a credit side and a dealer side. He says, this was a fantastic leadership role for me, which had me managing 120 staff and spending time overseas. Sorry, this was previously, he said. In 2010, he departed to go to Heartland, where to finance now. He's been with Avanti and Brandon Financial Services as an Australasian motor vehicle and consumer general manager. He's always keeping an eye on his old stomping ground. When the role of dealer GM popped up, he jumped at the chance to reconnect after 13 years away. I was always watching what UDC did, and I kept in touch with old colleagues who were still there. He says, so many people have been at UDC 15 years or more, which says a lot about the culture and the growth. But my read on this, great to have someone with a metric ton of dealer experience back at UDC. Have you ever bumped into Andrew, Graham, in your work?
Yep. Yeah. That's, I was going to say, he's an old familiar face from the UDC of times past, and I think it's a stellar move for the organisation. It really is. He's a really good operator, and he understands the industry at the grassroots level, which is what you want for a dealer manager. You need somebody that actually understands their marketplace. So I think it's a very smart move indeed from UDC's perspective, and probably in terms of career development for him as well.
All right, on to the next one. BYD Ute set for Field Days debut. So BYD have confirmed they're going to show their new Ute at Field Days next year, so the start of June. BYD New Zealand, and they've given us some more details. BYD New Zealand is planning to unveil its first unit Field Days in June of next year, with deliveries beginning in the third quarter. I'll hop over to EVs and Beyond for more on that. The Ute has hit headlines in recent weeks with sketches appearing in Chinese. Yeah, if you see it. A little note. We were saying that we're giving away an EV truck. Fun little competition from us through our EVs and Beyond and Transport Talk websites. Get this: we are giving away an electric truck for 2 months. We can't tell you what the brand is yet, but if you have the usage, if you need the usage of an electric truck in your business or organisation, then go over to EVs and Beyond or Transport Talk, and we have that there. Just totally aside, I'll get rid of that now off the screen if I can. It says. The Ute has hit headlines in recent weeks with sketches appearing in Chinese compliance documents and BYD's Australian distributor discussing the vehicle with media at a show in Japan. Although the brand initially launched as an all-electric operator, it will introduce plug-in hybrid options in the next year, and the Ute will follow suit. Now, here's some cool numbers for this thing. Initially, the vehicle utilized the brand's DMI plug-in hybrid system. This pairs a mid-sized battery with a 1.5-litre turbocharged engine, a generator, and 2 electric motors. Drivers predominantly electric, with the petrol engine only taking over at higher speeds. It'll be capable of off-road stuff. You've got to drive it all day and then have battery left to set up running your tools or campsite at the end of the day. Estimates suggest an EV-only range of up to 100 kilometres. It will support AC and DC charging and have vehicle to load. So you can go to your campsite and have air conditioning. The full EV version will follow around 12 months later. So all these people saying in these electric utes they can't do the work, here we go. All-wheel drive, it'll have full off-road capability. It's going to have a 0 to 100 of under 6 seconds, so faster than a Ranger Raptor. Tow capacity is going to be at least 3 tons, likely more. It's going to be a serious piece of kit. You're tempted to replace the Ranger, the Colorado with a supercar performance ute there, David?
Well, I read the article. I looked at it. Well, remind me the range.
The petrol range will be usual, the same as per a diesel, but electric about 100.
Yeah. So it's a hybrid. It's not electric. It's a hybrid. Don't call it electric. Call it a hybrid.
It's a plug-in hybrid in the same vein that a Outlander is, but with a significantly bigger battery.
Yeah. So when we get into the plug-in hybrid utes with a reasonable range on electric, that does change the picture. And if it's got a tow capacity of at least 3 tons, that would get me interested. Yes. A fully electric BEV, no, because of where I go with a caravan. But certainly a PEV,
this one here,
absolutely.
This one here, I reckon, will do the work. And you're going to pull up at the side of the road with your caravan and plug your caravan into your ute and run everything all night, and you'll be fine. It's going to be interesting for the PHEV utes next year because we've got that and the Ranger. The Ranger has a far smaller range, but I think the brand will take it a lot further potentially than BYD.
And look, I hope with the changes to the clean car standard in time that we see a longer period for plug-in hybrid electric utes, because I think that is where the ute market needs to go. It's not just plugging the caravan in. From a workplace perspective, you can charge your battery tools from, so all your off-site working, it just becomes so much better. A lot of the tools are battery tools these days, so why wouldn't you?
Graham, another vehicle faster than your Mustang.
Oh, most vehicles are, Richard. I say the same thing again. Put the 16-year-old schoolboys on the side of the road. Which one do they wave to first? Anyway, so
I don't know. Maybe these days a plug-in hybrid ute.
I wouldn't be betting on that one just quietly, Richard. However, if I was a marketing manager, I would say that you're better off calling it what it is as a hybrid than an electric vehicle, because I think some of the
they're not calling it electric ute. It's not non-electric ute. I'm calling it. I'm saying an electric one coming after.
You're calling it electric ute. I think the secret to the marketplace for utes being partially electrified is not call them electric, call them hybrids, because that marketplace, let's be honest, it's reasonably masculine, and some of the issues it has in rural New Zealand and other places, it's like, mate, what are those bloody Auckland latte sipping electric utes, mate? call it a hybrid and you'll get away with it, and you'll probably sell more to the people that otherwise just can't quite bring themselves to be seen to be driving an electric vehicle. I think marketing 101, call it a hybrid, and it'll reach people that otherwise may not want to be associating with the whole electrification side of things. It's just marketing. Call it a hybrid.
This is the smart thing from BYU's perspective. It's not an electric ute. They're probably called a plug-in hybrid, but it's DMI, dual motor intelligent.
Okay, yeah. So don't call it electric.
Dual motor sounds cool.
Don't call it electric. Let's just not call it electric. Let's now call it what it is. We'll do BYD a favour and probably sell more. Because let's face it, all of New Zealand's rural sector is watching our show right now thinking, Graham and Richard and David said it was pretty cool. I might get me one of those.
Now, from something that I think is cool to something that all of you will think is cool, New Zealand Police to restore Mitsubishi Flying Wedge. Mitsubishi Motors is helping restore a NZ Police 1988 V3000. It's actually, is that police or Ministry of Transport? 98 V3000, known as the Flying Wedge, back to its former pride and glory, led by one of the original technicians. Mitsubishi Technical Services Manager Lloyd Robinson fitted the vehicle out in 1988 and is now leading the refurbishment project. According to NZ Police Museum, stage one of the vehicle refurbishment is complete, with all the interior out. Good bones, which is a relief. No rust, it says. The Police Museum, posting on its Facebook page, says it has a number of interested folk wanting to know. We're going to take the V3000 back to Ministry of Transport, Traffic Safety Service livery. When MOT and police merged in 1902, the MOT fleet came over to the police and was rebranded. It's an important event in New Zealand Police and Ministry of Transport history, and our V3000 tells that story. Really cool. I love those vehicles. They're so neat. That video is playing.
Didn't like them very much at all. They were quite quick, as I recall at the time. There's no escaping a V3000 back in the day. Let's just quietly say.
That was the one.
We bought a whole lot of those when they finally came out of service in the 90s when they were defleeted. We bought, I'd say, half a dozen or maybe 7 or 8. Turners sold them as part of their police contract. We bought a whole lot of them, and they were just, black and white painted doors with all the disco bars taken off the roof and stickers peeled off them. And they were good. We did well out of them, actually. One of them, I happen to know, one of my colleagues still has secreted away in a little private collection he has, still with the white doors and still, I think, with half of it screw holes and bits and pieces in the interior console. Good cars.
And interestingly, when they went to the police, they had them with the armed defender squad. So I guess that's because they were so fast. What would it have been? Commodores or Falcons at the time? Probably Falcons, I guess.
That was the Falcon era.
So 1988. That's pre. That was the Ministry of Transport days, wasn't it? So they had the separate road traffic system. That was the vehicle that Mitsubishi had towing the tank along the desert road, wasn't it? The V3000.
So,
yes.
Were they the wide bodies? Didn't they have the wide body ones that had they basically in Australia, cut the dash down the middle and put a plastic capping over the dash to hide the cut down the middle of the dashboard?
Not the V3000. They called it something else, didn't they? Yeah. They called it something else.
They had the Magnas as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the Magna. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool old car.
Well done restoring that. That's pretty cool.
My brother had a similar import version, Galant or whatever it was, or Sigma, when he was a new driver, and it was quite the big lumbering automatic cruise machine at the time. Bit of retro cool back then.
A Sirius Dash 3x2.
Yes. Now, on to the next one. Just a nice little story. Twitter dealership staff dons aprons for a worthy cause. Staff members from Miles Twitter recently returned to the Ronald McDonald House in Christchurch once again for the annual family dinner program. Every year, the Miles Twitter team pulls together a group of angels in aprons to cook for the families staying together at Ronald McDonald House. This year, the team members participating were payroll administrator Sonia Smith, accounts receivable manager Dewey Coop, customer service and business development manager Jenny Woods, Twitter vehicle sales manager Eliza DeGroot, and new vehicle sales vehicle consultant Ben Trevelyan. Yep, and parts manager Kayla Chernoff. Miles Twitter says that the Ronald McDonald House charity that's near and dear to the hearts of the team members. We're proud to help such a worthy cause. Cooking a feast for these families is one of the most rewarding experiences for us, and we're humbled that we can provide something as simple as a warm, home-cooked meal at a tough time. Interesting to see the female skew of the staff that are attending that. I would have loved to have seen some of the more experienced blokes from the sales or service department in there, but still excellent effort. Excellent.
Can I just say, as being a recipient of the services of Ronald McDonald House in our past, I've got a daughter with significant health issues all her life, and we have been recipients of Ronald McDonald House and its services through Starship in Auckland for many a visit. What a fabulous charity to be involved with, and I won't hear a bad word said about them. They've just been. They're one of those charities that no one really knows exactly what they do. They donate, but they're not quite sure what that actually means. I can tell you as a parent, when you're living in hospital, and some of the service they provide to people, it's little things that make a difference that you otherwise hear nothing about. What a worthy charity. And I encourage any of you out there in the industry that has the ability to assist charities. That's one that I would help out in a heartbeat tomorrow. So well done, the Toyota team, getting behind that, because it really is a worthy group of people providing fantastic service to New Zealanders in need.
That's the Miles Twitter team. I'm just looking at their website now, and I note that in their kind of main corporate sponsor categories, they don't have a car company. So any car companies out there watching this, just saying they could fit someone in there. A good corporate thing to do. Last quick story of the day. Turners brings half-year results announcement forward. Turners Automotive Group Turners is bringing forward the 2024 half-year financial result announcement to November 22. Group Chief Executive Todd Hunter and Group Chief Financial Officer Aaron Saunders will present the 2024 half-year financial results, followed by Q&A and answer session at 10:30 a.m. So just a timing there. If you're interested in Turners, then put November 2022 in your calendar. Now, that's the last of the news stories today. Now, we're actually going to take a bit more of a somber note now and just have a quick word about someone who both Graham and I have worked closely with. David, you probably were exposed to him at some point, and that is Matt Greenoff. Now, Matt was fairly well known through the automotive industry for a number of years, and that he was a senior journalist for and then editor of Driven, with the NZ Herald's motoring section. He also spent a lot of time working for Performance Car Magazine. He spent a bit of time working for us. If you actually look through AutoTalk or our subsidiary websites, there are many stories written by Matt. Matt unfortunately passed away recently. He was the loveliest guy in the world, an incredibly talented writer. He sure liked to put the cat amongst the pigeons with some of his columns when he was working at the Herald, leading the Herald's automotive offerings. He, I think, wrote a column about wanting to kill all cyclists or something like that, or all cyclists should be dead. And it ended up in this amazing big back and forth with some positive outcomes, I think, between Matt and the cycling lobby, who I think at one point suggested they wanted to kill him. Really sad news. And I know some of his colleagues out there are, quite upset about the loss of someone who may have had a few demons, but was just one of the most talented writers I've ever met, and incredibly nice person to spend time with. Graham, you must have dealt with him a bit back in the performance car days, I'm guessing?
Yeah, it's incredibly sad news. You're absolutely right. He was just, he wore his heart on his sleeve. He called a spade a spade. He knew exactly where you stood with Matt. And he did write some really controversial columns, but that was part of the appeal of it. He wasn't just your ordinary, dare I say, motoring journalist. Sorry if you're listening out there. When we imported the famous Croydon Skyline, still in gunmetal grey, fresh off the auction floor, and we threw some tanks of avgas to it, he actually turned up and Nick took him out for a couple of fast runs in the Northwestern Motorway. I think Matt was passenger as they hurtled, I think, through the Northwestern around up around Massey and Don Buck Road there. I believe the speedometer needle may have been hovering north of a number that starts with 2.
You can get away with it back in those days.
You could, and Matt was just Matt was all in. He was all in for everything that he did, and great writer, and really knowledgeable about all things motoring, and just refused to be browbeaten into submission by the things that he should be writing about. So yeah, he's a huge talent that will be very sadly missed indeed.
Yeah, David, did you ever bump into Matt when he was at the Herald and you were at MIA?
In the early days of my tenure, yes. I think it's a comment on journalism in the motoring sector. I think somebody who is prepared to write what they see and what they feel is increasingly missed. And I think we need more critique in the motoring journalism than we tend to get. And sometimes it's repeating the blurb that's in the handout from the distributors. That's always a sad day. But Matt was not one of those people.
Anything but.
Anything but. And he did ruffle a few feathers, and good on him. And he will be sadly missed.
Yeah, look, farewell, Matt. You'll be missed, mate. Always remember standing around outside the back of our office down in Key Street in Auckland, having a chat with him about once every hour. We'd have to go out for a cigarette or a vape and a couple of shots of espresso from the Hollywood next door. And we'll hope you're doing okay up there. So yeah. Anyway, on that note, an excellent weekly wrap. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully, this time next week we're moving to a new house, which will mean a new studio, which I've already got planned out for the weekly wrap. I think we might have to pre-record next week, boys. But we'll see you then for another AutoTalk weekly wrap.